Purpose Highway is a space for discussions that drive connections toward people's highest purpose to build a better self and a better world. Join me for season 1, where I start to uncover stories of entrepreneurs and thinkers that are making an impact. I'm your host, Scott Mason, and enjoy today's episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of my podcast. This is Scott Mason, and I am here with yet another dynamic and exciting guest. This time it is Jolene Damian. And
hello.
She is someone that is very good at saying hello. She is a tech nerd. She is a podcaster. She focuses on entrepreneurship with her podcast, which is called Friday Flavors. I have had the opportunity to appear on that, and it is incredible. In addition, she is a business development and marketing diva with Dirad Technologies. And I am going to point out something that you will see in the screen behind her because it symbolizes everything that I love about Jolene, and that is the bouncing turquoise ball behind you. And that says to me, this is someone with a sense of inner play who lives life exuberantly. And do you think I'm exaggerating any when I say you believe in living life exuberantly, Jolene?
Fullest, mostest, yesest, most epicnessest. I'll invent new words. I don't care. Yes. I love every time I get to hang out with you, Scott. Every single time.
But I've got to say, I have been with you in a number of different business contexts, and some of those business contexts, let's keep it real, have been kind of boring. Yet you somehow manage to liven it up and make it exciting. And I think one of the things that I've observed with you is a sense of authenticity. You know, we were talking pre-show about your history and how you evolved to become the business development diva that you are, to be able to found this podcast and make it so engaging. And I think one of the things that's amazing is looking back at your early life, this might not have been what people would have expected of you.
No, I don't think so. I don't think that if you had asked me 18 years ago what I would be doing right now today, and you told me this, I would have been like, bullshit.
What would they have thought you would have been, though? Now we've got to know.
Dead from drugs or in prison for drugs. That probably would have been most people's assumption of me at that time. Yeah, and my own. I thought I was going to be dead or in prison.
You know, in a way, that could be an utter conversation stopper. But I actually view that as the ultimate conversation starter because, that's someone to me who may not feel or had people in their lives not feel that they had anything worth living for. The presupposition that you'll be dead or in prison or otherwise not contributing to society says to me that someone either internally doesn't believe that they've connected with their purpose or that they have no purpose or that the social milieu that they're in also does not believe that they have a purpose. Yet, part of what I've observed with you is that in your business development role, let alone just in your other roles as a podcaster and human being interfacing in the world, you bring, as we mentioned earlier, such exuberance, such joy of life, that it's hard for me to believe that on some level or another, you haven't connected with your purpose. Are my assumptions right there? And if so, talk to us a little bit about your journey. Like, what changed?
So I think for myself as a child, it was tough because I had a very strong loneliness. I did not feel understood because as long as I can remember, I have had the same maturity level. I've had the same mentality. I was like a grown person in a little tiny person's body.
Wow.
And I understood things at face value at that time that I really shouldn't have worried about. I understood poverty. I understood how hard my mom was struggling. Her depression was my depression. She was going through it as a single mom. You know what I mean? And I am very empathetic. And therefore, I was very sensitive to that energy always being around me of gloom and doom and gloom and all of those negative feelings about myself. I felt very inferior. I had a very strong inferiority complex.
Wow.
And I ended up just kind of like drowning that in bad living, like started smoking a ton of weed and doing pills. I ended up being a complete pill head. And it got to the point where I was so bad at the age of 19 and 20. By the time I was 20, I mean, I was like sickly thin. Was really not eating food because I couldn't keep real food down. And I was like living off of pain pills and whiskey. I would like start my day with a bottle of Crown Royale and chug down a bunch of Percocets. Like I wouldn't even count them. Like I wasn't counting milligrams. I would sprinkle pills in my hand. Like I was so self-destructive, and I had no idea I was going through this self-destruction. I just thought, well, I like to get high, and I like to live like this, but I got to the point where I just could not stop. It gets to a point, and this is every drug addict could tell you who, especially every reformed one would tell you that, that high feeling is everything to you. And then as soon as you come down, you're like, oh my gosh, I need to stop this. And then you start that need. And it got to the point where I really thought I could not stop. Like I had done everything. I tried to go cold turkey.
Wow.
I tried to check myself into centers, and I was pretty sure I was going to die. I was at a point where I was like, I am so far out of control. Like everything I've tried has failed. I think I'm just going to end up dying. Like I don't keep food down. And this is like, I could feel my organs. Like I was so skinny and gross. I could like feel my organs. It was disgusting. And I was like, I'm going to die. And I remember sitting on the couch and putting my face in my hands like this at the house that I lived at. And I had a Crown with lime in front of me and a joint. And I was just like smoking and drinking myself into oblivion. And I remember looking up and going, God, please forgive me. I know I'm going to die very soon. And I just hope you really forgive me for all of this, that I did this to myself and that I killed myself with this alcohol. But I have tried everything and I am hopeless. 1 week after that moment, I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, Talia, who just turned 13 this past Monday. And I changed immediately. As soon as I found out that the reason I ended up bringing myself to the hospital. I was like, guys, I'm dying. I can tell I'm dying now. I'm vomiting every single morning. And I am like, I don't know if I should try to detox or if I should just try to like die here because I'm not die here. I don't know what to do. So I checked myself in and it turned out I was pregnant, and something internally clicked for me. And I went, oh, okay, well, I just stopped. That's it. You just don't pick it up. It's not about me. It's about this kid. It's not about me. And it was a very difficult, trust me, it was a very difficult pregnancy because of that. It was very difficult first, especially the first 2 months. Very difficult getting clean, very difficult going through the withdrawal while being pregnant, and being very concerned that I had done some damage to this child somehow by, imagine only a week before I found out I was a few weeks pregnant, I was smoking and drinking and doing pills, and I was very concerned that I had already done irreparable damage. And she was born perfect. Perfect. Wonderful. Praise God. Yeah.
It is interesting that you raised that. As a personal anecdote, I know someone who was a heavy-duty compulsive smoker. She was someone I knew through an earlier phase of my career, and she became pregnant. The first time, from my understanding, her child came out okay despite the heavy smoking. But the second time, I heard that her child was born with some significant heart issues, maybe even a hole in the heart. And, her life, from what I understand, went on a very challenging trajectory afterwards because of presumably what was guilt around that. And I think that one of the things, though, that is different about her story versus yours was that for whatever reason, she wasn't able, after she lucked out the first time, to say what you did, which is, I'm going to stop, and I'm going to stop now. Because she also knew, as I assume all of us did, that ongoing smoking as the child, especially at the level she was at, was dangerous even for the child growing up. Now, I say this not to judge her, because I have profound empathy for her, and ultimately this led to a tragically and brutally unfair early death for her. And she has, a child now that's growing up without her mommy. And so I think that the fact that what happened with you didn't happen to someone else is something that will always clang in my heart as a case of untapped potential. Because we all have huge potential, and this woman had a lot of it. Talk to me about what your reaction is hearing that story, and once your daughter was born, once you had her, how you dealt with any residual interest in reverting to some of the habits you might have had before, or was it?
Oh, I failed. No, I have failed. No. Like I did for the pregnancy, I was very good. And for a long time after that, I was, but just like most addicts and people with, mental disorders and things like that, go through, you end up regressing or tripping up, and it's generally around, tragedy. So tragedy strikes, and suddenly you become that person who wants to mask how they feel again, who doesn't want to feel everything that they feel again, who wants to kill the pain. It's so hard. It's so hard. I respect everybody who's gone through this and gotten through it. And I respect everybody who's going through it now. And because you're not less loved for being the way that you are, and God still loves you, and I still love you, and people still, are here for you. But it is hard. It is hard to not want to go back to that kill the pain easily, solution that, mentally it ends bad every single time, but you still think that you will be able to control it this time around. So I feel for everybody going through that, and you should seek help, and you should go to your therapy sessions. I'll tell you the worst thing about myself, my number one fault is that I hate going to therapy. I hate going to it. I hate talking about my past. I hate talking about tragedy. And so I revert to smoking pot to cover up the fact that I've been sexually assaulted, that I've been dealing with a bad divorce from years ago, that I'm struggling to raise children in this world that seems ever changing and crazy, and maintain relationships that so need nurturing, like my marriage and friendships, and now do that virtually for the majority of that. And so it's motivating yourself to find the positive in the situation and focus on that versus going the opposite way. It's easy, and I feel it. 100%.
Well, it raises a really interesting point, though, because one of the things that I am sure people are detecting when they're watching this is the positivity that you bring out, the energy. Like I mentioned earlier, that joy of living.
Yeah.
Even if you're not feeling it inside. What if you're someone who's watching this, or someone, you're watching this and you know someone who you understand is feeling like this sense of, I don't feel anything positive in my life, right? Jolene is up here bouncing around and saying, I felt all of this stuff, but she has it within her to be able to pull out the positive, to be friendly, to be engaged, to be committed to her daughter, to her marriage, to the other relationships in her life. What distinguishes you from someone like that? And what's a step that someone like that could take that you took to really bring your full self like you do?
Fix yourself and take time to do it, and don't let anybody pressure you into rushing it. You will need to take a break from your life, take a break from your reality for a week, for 2 weeks, and get your ever-loving stuff together for yourself and for nobody else. Take that time. I checked myself into 4 seasons. It's not 4 seasons, 4 wins. I checked myself into, a facility to get help for a couple of weeks, and to just take a pause, step away from my life. My children, thank God, my husband is such a good man, and he took very good care of my children while I Went and talked to therapists finally, despite my feeling about them, and got some help. Got some help for myself mentally to go, to learn how to go through trauma without reverting back to drugs, and how to process my past experience and bring that into the future without letting it drag you down. That's, you can learn those skills and you can get that, but you really need to take a break and take care of yourself first to do that.
One of the things that I thought was most interesting when we were doing our pre-show interview last time was you talked about how you were able to transition into sales and business development in particular, what that meant, and then how some of the issues that you might have faced before and some of these challenges ended up playing out in your work life in ways that to me were utterly unexpected and very interesting. Maybe you could talk to us a little bit about how exactly you got into business and into business development and what you meant in a little bit more detail with regards to how these issues play out that I was referencing a few seconds ago.
So I got into sales, and if we're being honest, I just have a spirit of entrepreneurship, just like a lot of people out there listening to this, and Scott has that spirit of entrepreneurship, of feeling like you want to independently do something for yourself. So my first experience in business altogether was at a very young age. When I was 11 years old, I got little business cards and for butterfly babysitting, and got a CPR certification, got a babysitting certification course thing, and went to churches and offered my services in their nursery with the babies, and all the cute babies got my business card in their diaper bag. I would give it to the parents, and sometimes they would just ask me straight out. So it was interesting. I didn't know I was marketing, but I was marketing at the time, my services. I had a friend who I had do the same thing. I had her go through the same certifications, and if I couldn't take a person who called, then she would take them. And so it was actually really interesting. I did that for a very long time, from the time I was 11, 12, all the way until I was 16 years old and started to get really addicted to drugs and have had those problems. And I was kicked out of my house by the time I was 17. Actually, a few days after my 17th birthday is when I got kicked out of my house and really went downhill in the drugs and everything. So, but it's interesting, when I got clean and I started to work in waitressing and bartending, and I used to train all the servers. I was very good at it. I had a very good time doing it. I enjoyed the hospitality industry. And so I ended up actually going from waitressing and bartending to accidentally getting a job in sales because I applied to it I called the wrong number, got the job.
You are kidding.
Totally underqualified, completely unqualified. She's like, you know what? I ended up having a conversation with her for like 15 minutes on the phone before we even spoke about the job. So she liked me. And she's like, listen, come to the training on day one and see if you can learn this stuff. If you can learn how to blueprint, I will teach you everything. And she did. She taught me everything. I was very successful within my first 3 months. I was blowing all the boys out of the water. It was great.
Were you laughing inside?
I was so joyful. I was like so happy. But that, and it's funny that actually ended up being a very difficult journey. I know we've had this discussion before where that job ended up turning into what sucked the life out of me several years later. And I had my 7-year-old telling me that, she needed more attention from me, basically just came out and told me she thought I didn't like her. And that made me change everything. So again, my oldest always changing my life for me. She's a very special child in that way. And she's a handful, and I love her. She's always kind of been my little savior. Saved me from myself.
I was going to say, she sounds like the world's ultimate catalyst, at least in your life. And maybe I need to have her in my house every now and then too. Maybe I'll adopt your babysitting idea, even though she's not a baby anymore.
I will rent you a teenager. Listen, she's all yours anytime you want to take a child out. And yes, all day. I'll get you a leash and some food. Don't worry.
Well, I will be very, very careful with how I utilize that particular instrument.
Run to teenager.
But it goes as to one of the things, a personality characteristic that I associate with entrepreneurship, basically being one, and with another person in my own life, my husband, who is more than happy to be the catalyst for me to make changes when I'm spinning out of control. And that is with entrepreneurialism. You have to work very hard. Some of it is so that, and whether that entrepreneurialism is through owning your own business or whether it is through sales and business development, which is, as you correctly point out, a profoundly entrepreneurial skill set.
Yeah.
And you can find yourself so deeply driven in that boundaries cease. The boundaries between work and my time off, the boundaries between vacation and regular work days,
working your self-worth.
Yeah. And so, one of the things that I've had to really learn to be able to hear, and that my husband has become very vocal about, is letting me know when it's taking over my life, when I'm threatening to become someone whose entire personality or reason for existing becomes subsumed by that work. Is that something you've ever faced? Particularly because I know as a salesperson, you have had some unbelievable milestones that you have hit in very challenging circumstances. And if so, just talk to us about it a little bit, because we need to know.
I've been put into check by my husband more times than I can tell you, because he and I are opposites, and this is why we are so attracted to one another, because I'm jumping around going crazy, trying to do 4,000 things and plan a $1 million future and all this craziness all the time. Like, I'm jumping on every idea that I've got, and I've got so much creativity flowing out of me. I can't stop talking about everything I want to do, right? And he's chill, relax, cool, very low key, and he'll just be like, are you getting a little wild? Are you getting a little out there? Do you think maybe we need to maybe reel it into reality?
And what exactly do you say?
Pinche cabrón, ¿por qué me estás ahí diciendo toda esa mierda? That's probably close to what I would say, but anyway, don't translate that, anybody. Don't tell them what I just said. It's already explicit. It's already been decided that this is going to be an explicit episode.
Right. We've already just, rolled out the slide and sat on our rear ends and just gone down the hill.
It's happened. It happens.
Let me ask you this. Do you feel when you go to work every day, whatever sort of work you're doing, in this particular role, or maybe in the role of your podcast, that you are actually in connection with who you are? And if so, is that different than your experience before? How do you know it? If that's what you feel.
Yes, because I've got a lot of autonomy, and I think autonomy is going to be a word of the year for 2020. Everybody ended up having to work autonomously and figure out what to do on their own for themselves, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is something that we all should value carefully. And
what do you mean by that?
Misused, again, you abuse the power of being able to go to work and do something that you love every day. And so let me get back on track. So what's the question, so that I can really get to the heart of it?
What do you feel like you're connected with who you are, why you're here, when you're playing the roles that you have in your life now, whether it's as a podcaster, business development, driving sales? If so, is that a different experience than you had before, especially when you were dealing with some of the addiction issues that you've discussed earlier?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I've had to clean myself up and get serious about business and get myself back on track so many times that now I'm like, okay, that's it. And I've got a good run going and we're going to keep it that way. And and it has to do a lot with, working with companies and in ways that I'm comfortable with. Like I can be very much myself. in everything and anything that I do. Do I have to tone it down for certain professional things? Of course, in sales, there's always like the serious side, because if you're spending $50,000 with me, then you're going to want to know that there's some business getting done.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel very strongly connected with what makes me happy. And I feel like my work makes me happy. I don't have that Sunday night dread of I got to go to work tomorrow morning. I don't feel like that ever. And I felt that way in the past. I have felt like, I dread going to work today. Back when I used to have to go run down to the restaurant, I'd be like, oh gosh, I'm not feeling it today.
What would you say to someone though who might be feeling that? And I've really felt that at different parts of my life. I'll never forget. I think I may have mentioned it to you one time. I was walking by. I was, in an attorney position, making quite a decent salary, and I walked by the coffee stand on the curbs side outside of the office where I worked, and I remember feeling such envy for that man and the life he was getting to live. And that was a signal to me that maybe it was time for me to make a change, and maybe I really was not appropriately connected with what I needed to be doing in this world.
Yeah.
But it was hard, and it was years before I was able to take that step. What would you say to someone who might be where I was that day? I felt that intense envy of the guy in the coffee stand.
Be very careful. If you're unhappy in the job that you're doing, if you're unhappy in your career, if you're unhappy in your relationship, I'm not saying get a divorce just because you're unhappy. You can work through those things, but, be careful to quit on time when it's time to quit. I've stayed too long at times, and I knew, go with your gut too. You know what I mean? We've had this conversation. We've said go with your gut before. Yeah. But, be careful to quit on time. So, don't stay too long in a relationship that's, is broken. Don't stay too long in a career that's broken, because it acts like a relationship. Breaking up from my career in sales, where I was making so much money but had to make the moral decision to, again, choose my family over my career. I stayed too long and did harm to my family because of that. I stayed too long in that job, and then it was like breaking up. When I did it was like a bad breakup. It was like going through a relationship, and you literally go through that pain and that depression, and that, again, that cycle kicks in where you want to just deal with things the wrong way. Yeah. So yeah. Be careful. Quit when you're ahead. That would be that's what I would say. Yeah. And then, find the next thing. Don't give up. Seasons come and seasons go. Find the next thing. Don't be afraid to reinvent yourself at that time. Go out there and do it for yourself.
And that's one of the big things that I think about a lot. And I like to tell folks, which is that at the end of every journey, there's always another boat waiting for you. Sometimes you just can't see it. And if you're stuck in that leaky, nasty, tired old boat that's got you where you need to be, but isn't fit to go any further, you do have the choice to step out and find another boat on that shore. It sounds like you've done that. And particularly for a values-based reason, that a lot of people compromise a lot. Because they're afraid of stepping away, particularly for a value reason. They're afraid that there won't be another boat there for them to hop into.
Wow, that's sad. And I've been there. That's basically, that was my rock bottom. My rock bottom was having to check myself in to 2 weeks at Four Winds to get my act together, just mentally deal with stuff that needed to get dealt with, and approach my future and go, I'm ready to start. I might be afraid to end this one, but I won't be afraid to start the next one. That's what you got to focus on.
Is that optimism something that's native to you?
I don't know.
You've developed?
It could be from coffee and good friends. It's coffee and good friends. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Maybe a little bit of camping. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I will attribute all of my optimism to coffee. In fact, I've got my cup right here.
Yo.
Yours, please. Exactly.
And I'm bougie as hell. Look at me. bougie, baby. My husband buys these, and I'm like, you're the bougiest Mexican I ever seen in my life. Walking around drinking your San Pellegrino water with your pinky up.
Let me tell you, Jolene, there's nothing wrong with aspirationalism. I love it. That's what we are all. I want to be like George Jefferson. I want you to be my Wheezy up to that deluxe apartment in the sky.
Oh my gosh. We are going to karaoke. I'm going to publicly proclaim the fact that you and I are going to do karaoke, and we're going to go live when we do it, and it's going to be epic.
And one day we are going to have a meetup of all of the podcast guests and all of our audience members, and we're going to do karaoke together. Jolene, you're going to stand at the stage and you're going to sing a song by what group?
Boney M with you. We're doing a duet. We're doing a duet. That's not hard to do for a male voice in Boney M. And if anybody else knows what we're talking about, stay tuned because you're in for a very special treat.
Exactly. I was going to say, if you do not know what Boney M is, then look him up. Boneym. And while I'm telling people to look people up, Jolene, how can people find out more about you? Because I know they're going to not just want to, they're going to need to.
Well, if you'd like, I live in Schenectady. If you have, don't meet me. Don't come out meet me.
We're not talking about that.
Don't come meet me. You can reach me at fridaysflavor@gmail.com, fridaysflavor.com. I'm on YouTube as Friday's Flavor. I'm on Facebook as Friday's Flavor. I'm on LinkedIn as Jolene Damian. Instagram, I guess we're working on. I think we have an Instagram. That's what we've seen.
You do?
You've seen my Instagram.
I have.
It definitely looks like a 33-year-old is managing it.
Well, let me tell you, we all have our borders and our frontiers. Instagram is yours.
Instagram is the Insta frontier that I'm instantly working on, literally right now.
You will feel like Laura Ingalls Wilder in the prairie, but it'll be Instagram and say, just don't wear that bonnet, please, because it's really out of style.
Oh my gosh, I'm much more an Anne of Green Gables.
Oh, everyone, Jolene, thank you so much. And everyone, we are looking forward to seeing you on our next episode at Scott Mason. Checking out.
God bless.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Join our community today at purposehighway.com and subscribe to get notified when new episodes go live. Scott Mason, checking out.